not committed to any one tactic, but I will improvise in the way that serves that principle. And that principle is the United States seems doomed to go to hell. Well, I don't want the United States to go to hell, and I'm going to do everything possible to prevent it. Is not what's happening.
Koresh and I were in a mall,
This is not a routine.
and we were watching a right-wing guy in California named Lyndon LaRouche.
Beauty contest.
And we're thinking, this guy's a nutcase. How can anybody follow him? And then Koresh turns to me and he goes, yeah, but you and I are in a cult. I mean, you follow me, and I'm saying I'm the son of God. I'm divinely inspired. And we kind of laughed about it. He said, yeah, that's true, actually.
I've destroyed people like you. Their towers are desolate. Their streets are laid waste.
David Koresh believed he was the seventh and final prophet.
It's the same Christ who smites, reveals a judgment.
He would use emotional words like, "He'll die in hell."
He was saying the apocalypse is real, Armageddon is real. We'll take you to a place of safety.
I found that pretty awesome.
Well, there's some statements in there that might make you a little bit happy.
Beverly was thinking she was onto a good thing.
My name's Bernadette. I'm from London, England.
Sadly, Bernadette was a very different person by the time she went to Waco.
It's a better way of living, a better way of thinking.
He gave them hope, but he was nothing but a two-bit street punk. It's total chaos.
It was vicious. They wanted to murder us.
I kept wondering, is this how my little boy was gonna die?
This was the most extraordinary military assault on a civilian group America, I think, has ever seen.
You come on our land, we're not bowing down to you.
We have what appears to be a fire going on right now.
Not knowing is the worst.
Your family is the greatest treasure you have in this life.
It was eternal life. That's why we went through with it.
I'm talking to you. If you want to keep playing that game, somebody's going to get hurt.
Waco, for the most part, has always been a very conservative city. It's always had very deep religious roots, no matter what faith. My first recollection of the Branch Davidians was in 1955 or 1956. My father, who was a U.S. Marshal at the time, took me and my younger brother to the Branch Davidians. There's a street that they were on called Mount Carmel. And he said, these people believe that the world is coming to an end at midnight on Saturday night, but they're going to feel pretty silly when they wake up, the sun's still shining, and it didn't happen. The Branch Davidians were unusual, very religious, but they were good people, and there was never one bit of trouble until this young guy, David Koresh, joined the group. He just took it to an all-new level.
David Koresh was born to a very young mother. I think she was 14 at the time. He was bullied at school. He was sexually abused, not at home, but by other boys. He was brought up in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. He had started to experience visions about how God had decided that he was to marry the pastor's daughter. She became pregnant by him, probably twice, so he was asked to leave.
Koresh stumbled in, more or less, to Mount Carmel, which is just outside of Waco. Mount Carmel at that time was led by Lois Roden, the widow of Ben Roden, a former head.
Lois Roden was very impressed with his knowledge of Scripture, and his ability to join passages together.
She was in her 50s or 60s, and he was about 20. The presumption was that he was having sex with her, and he became her successor.
David Koresh was in fact born Vernon Howell. In 1985, he undertook a trip to Israel, and he became convinced that he was a prophet and that he had a particular role to play. As a result of that, Vernon Howell became David Koresh. The Psalms of David in the Old Testament, he believed, were all about him. He thought that God had a purpose for him in freeing his people.
Cliff was 5 years older than me. We had a brilliant relationship. We used to just laugh for the sake of laughing. Cliff was extremely intelligent, and also he was very inquisitive, and if there was anything he didn't understand, he would delve into it more, and he would go and find out. Cliff got to about 22, 23 maybe, and my dad said that he felt that Cliff was looking for something, searching for something. He wanted to study theology, so he went to Newbold College.
Newbold College is a Seventh-day Adventist academic institution. People came from everywhere in the world to study at Newbold.
The belief that the world is going to end is very common, not just within the Christian tradition, but within other religions. But within Seventh-day Adventism, it holds a particularly important place. The Seventh-day Adventists have a clear belief in the second coming of Jesus. The Branch Davidians are an offshoot of the Seventh-day Adventists. The difference is that they saw themselves as absolutely key players in the apocalyptic end of the world.
Let's see from the scriptures, because I'm going to first, by the Spirit of truth, God so leads, harmonize a few of these gentlemen in the Bible. And when we leave this room today, we're hoping that maybe you will come along with us and these men.
The Branch Davidians believed that they had a prophet, David Koresh. Koresh believed that he would explain to them everything they needed to know and be part of the apocalyptic events that were about to take place to bring about the end of the world and prepare the earth for the eternal kingdom.
Cliff told me that a group of his friends were invited to go to a house and talk through things to do with the Bible, just like a chat.
God says God is to bring to pass. That's what prophecy is. And when Christ brings his book, that book contains what? A revelation of who? Jesus Christ.
David Koresh could speak the Seventh-day Adventist language because he had been a Seventh-day Adventist.
I don't care if you're an alcoholic. You know that alcohol is wrong.
And so word got around, hey, you got to hear this guy. That's when he started to convert people in Newbold. So for the same reason that I got hooked, people thought, well, yeah, well, we need to know more. I met Koresh in 1986. He wasn't well-spoken in the sense that, he wasn't very erudite. He didn't have much of an education. What really got me was he acted like what I thought a prophet should act like. It was exciting because we're going to shake the world.
We got to learn the Bible pretty well. He'd be in Zechariah, he'd be in Matthew, he'd be in the Gospels, he'd be in Daniel, Revelation, he'd be all over the shop, books that I'd never even really realised were in the Bible. I found that pretty awesome.
David Koresh, who was a very, very convincing person. And when you're searching for answers to something as complex as the second coming of Jesus Christ, and Koresh appears to be providing the answers, you're vulnerable. In their vulnerability, they wanted to believe.
My first daughter, Diana, was the first one who got herself involved with David Koresh. Her boyfriend was a student of Newbold College. And he called my daughter to come and listen to this great prophet of God.
We're under fire, not because of the embezzlement of large means of money, not because we preach the gospel and offer healing. We don't offer healing, do we? No. We don't.
Koresh spoke for a long time. He would use emotional words like damnation, he'll die in hell.
You hungry? I'll take you down to Jack in the Box and buy you a burger.
My daughter, she was hooked. She became convinced that he was the true Messiah, the Christ.
I remember Cliff telling me that he was going to leave the course and he was going to go to America. They were telling him that he was an incredibly talented artist, and they were going to get him on a fantastic art course which would help promote his art skills. Although I was happy about his enthusiasm, I felt a little bit uncomfortable about it. But equally, I was excited for him because this sounded like an amazing opportunity.
My sister Beverly was quiet, and she come across, she's shy, so you feel very protective of her, and you always want to make sure she was okay.
If she believed something, she was very serious about it.
She was searching and trying to learn more, and that's where the downfall came.
We're leaving out the prophecies right now of God's word, and you don't even know you are. It says what you would do in the last days, how you would think, the kind of attitude you'd have, and you're fulfilling God's word and don't even know it.
Steve Schneider was the chief recruiter for Branch Davidians in the UK. Rather like David Koresh, he had a very good memory and was able to jump around the scriptures in a way that would have been deeply impressive to those to whom he was talking at the time.
Who is worthy to open the book and to loose the seven seals thereof?
We'd go to Manchester and have meetings.
Here is an angel that is asking a major question.
Beverly was thinking she was onto a good thing.
I think it was a brainwashing situation. Steve Schneider was reading the scriptures. He was saying that the apocalypse is real, Armageddon is real, and they're going to meet with Jesus. By the time he had finished speaking to the group, they were just thinking that there's a better life somewhere. Let's pack our bags and go and see.
Uncle Winston was a Seventh-day Adventist.
I remember as a child, he was a gentle giant. He was big in stature, but he was gentle and loving.
I knew something was going on in the background, but there was a lot of secrecy, and I just couldn't understand why there was so much secrecy.
Winston Blake was engaged to Beverly. It slipped out then. They were going to America on holiday. He was so excited, he had so much fun. This sister said it was second to none.
And then Beverly was saying that she's not sure she'd come back to England. Nobody knew what was really going on.
And then I found out they canceled all their pension scheme that they hold, and they empty all the bank account and everything.
I was shocked. can't believe it. It's all a numb feeling, a numb feeling.
A lot of these people just wanted a sense of belonging. And so he would make them feel welcome. He'd make them feel important. He hoodwinked these people. He was nothing but a two-bit street punk. That's all he was.
My name's Derek Lovelock. I was in the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Manchester. There was a newsletter saying that some self-proclaimed prophet in America saying he can reveal the book of Revelation, and I wanted to know more. So I wanted to go over there and judge for myself, and I was excited because I thought I'm meeting the guy that's claiming to interpret this Bible. My life really changed when I met David Koresh. It was a better way of living, a better way of thinking. That's what it was to me. Sometimes you'd get up and David would bring a new project, right, we're going to build this and we're going to build that. But everything was just second to what the truth was in the Bible.
And what God says, God is to bring to pass. That's what prophecy is.
David said that every book in the Bible begin and end in Revelation. This was mind-blowing stuff.
God speaks in that book of the things he has made concerning his Son.
The book of Revelation is a book that comes at the very end of the New Testament. And in that book, the writer is saying that God, through Jesus, has revealed to him the future course of human history.
When does Christ come? As soon as he receives the Lord.
David Koresh opened that book and explained it word for word. It made you catch the vision. You saw it in your mind, like soaked it in through your eyes. It made me realize that David Koresh is the one that God is talking to.
Things which I have made touching them.
I don't understand how anybody could have followed him, but most everybody that he brought in was lacking something in their life, and he gave them hope.
David came to the house, and myself and my husband, Wayne, Harvard-trained lawyer, heard some of the things that David was speaking of. And my son was blind, not able to walk. And David comforted me by saying that we all needed more healing than he did. And that our condition towards God was so bad that God almost was showing us through our child how much we needed our lives to be changed. We left all the comforts and people and the things that we knew to accept God and to accept the truth. We had 5 children, and then 2 more were born in Texas.
When Cliff moved to America, we were getting a bit worried because I'd not spoken to him for quite a while. But he wrote long letters, and ultimately they were all about his artwork. People have seen my artwork and have encouraged me strongly to go for it in that area. I'm wanting to be the best I ever can be. And he just basically said, please just allow me a little bit of space so that I can do this, because this is what I want to do. I don't know whether he had his own bank account. I don't know whether he kept his own wages or whether all the money went back to Koresh.
People had sold their property and given their money to David, and they were even told to get in touch with any of their family to get them to sell their property. Suddenly, it was all about money.
He built this great big compound. That was a huge structure. And we heard through a pretty reliable source that he spent over $50,000 on just the engine for his Camaro. My brother, who was a U.S. Marshal at the time, We saw Koresh in his hopped-up car smoking the tires. And my brother says, my gosh, there goes Jesus. He was the biggest fraud, the biggest creep that I can think of.
I had to come back to Australia when my visa ran out, and I didn't go back for 2 years. And the contrast between the group and the teachings, it's just like night and day. What have I walked into? There were guards at the gate with guns, and when the new light came, that was the final straw.
The new light was basically do whatever I tell you. But what Koresh said was, how many of you are living according to the standard of Christ? And of course, the answer to that is nobody. And said, okay, you have not walked according to the teachings of Jesus.
I found out through Mark that David Koresh had made all marriages null and void. All the women in the world belonged to him. This is totally unbelievable to me that people in the group could go along with that.
One time he said, if I were to let all of you people become husband and wives again, in a month's time you'd be fighting with each other all over again. So this way you guys actually get along better, you treat each other better.
I fell into the trap of, yes, this is terrible, this is concerning, but if that's what the Bible says, that's what we have to do. If I could see chapter and verse in the Bible, then I would put my feelings aside.
I said, Mark, what is going on? You've been here. How can you let this happen? Can you not see that it's wrong?
I was keenly aware of what was going on. I was aware that he was sleeping with other women. And then Koresh took me aside and he said his favorite wife was the 12-year-old. And I didn't know what to do because he had the blessing of the parents. That was really the start of, okay, I got to think about this now.
When Beverly went to Waco, we had to ring her. She couldn't ring us. We had to ring her. It wasn't an easy life.
The people imagine a vain thing. What are they thinking?
We're working all day, doing whatever they were told to do, the chores. And they had to set up all night, late, early hours of the morning, doing Bible studies.
So how's God going to talk to me in the latter days?
I remember my mother on the phone to Uncle Winston, and she was saying, you need to come home. And obviously I couldn't hear what he was saying, but my mum's next response was, what do you mean it's not that easy? I think that's when alarm bells started ringing.
I wanted to go to America, and I said, I'm coming over and I'm going to fetch you. So can you get a hold of your passport? And she says to me, no, Koresh got their passports.
Several months had gone by and we'd not heard from Cliff. My other brother, Chris, who's 3 years older than me, said, I'm going to go over to America and going to find out where he is and if he's okay. Chris then met up with David Koresh and asked lots of questions, almost interrogating him on a friendly level to make sure that Cliff was okay. In Chris's account of when he went to Waco, he wrote, David Koresh wanted to turn the ranch into as close to paradise as he could. He showed me the start of where they were digging a man-made lake. Chris asked, why are there 2 sentry boxes at the gate? And Koresh said, that's just for our protection. He said, we have drunk people coming along every now and again. It was still a little bit strange, but Chris came home perfectly happy that Cliff was safe and well and that he was living a happy life.
Remember that day when we got married?
Yeah.
After Mark and I were married, I went back to Australia and I was never going back. It was just a matter of getting Mark there. People had guns, and by that stage I think Mark was in trouble. He must have said a thing or two.
By then, I knew this was no good and I had to get out. But then, of course, you didn't just leave. You had to plan your escape.
The first thing we had to do was get him out of Texas. Luckily for him, he had an aunt and uncle who lived in California, and he packed his bags one day, phoned them up and said, "Can you come get me?" And they did. And he was gone to Australia, and they had no idea where he was.
We tried to get the attention of the U.S. authorities. We tried immigration, we tried social services, and they just weren't interested. So we went to the media, and they didn't believe us at first either, but they grilled us for hours and hours and hours.
I was in Waco, Texas, at the Waco Tribune-Herald. I was basically out of school. That was my first reporting job. One day, we got a call from Australia. They had been in the Branch Davidian compound. They were concerned that young girls were being raped and that some small children were being abused and that David Koresh was in total control out there. They had left the cult because of all the stuff they saw. It's almost like brainwashing. They said, we started talking about it with some editors, and they're like, well, maybe you need to look into this a little more.
When you're in a cult, there are very strong family-like bonds. The only ones you feel you can trust are the ones in the group. God has chosen us to receive His light. Gradually, Koresh started to teach, okay, well, David needs to have mighty men, warriors. And so we started to train to be warriors because it's us against the world.
David Koresh saw everything outside of the compound as Babylon, the oppressor of God's people, and the modern-day equivalent to that, David Koresh identified as the American law enforcement agencies. I do think that they were anticipating a showdown of some sort, which would include them having to defend themselves.
In your understanding of this final confrontation, were you all taught this would be a literal battle?
Yeah, a little battle where, people are going to be killed. It said in the scriptures, it talks about this sacrificing your life for God.
He was preparing for war.
Let me say this. The greatest knowledge is to know the truth. And my experience tells me that David Koresh was a deceiver and a liar. I met David Koresh in the compound. My daughter was sitting right there. He wanted me to join him. When he realized that he couldn't win me over, he began to curse me. And I told him, I will not be deceived. My daughter, all that she could see was a man trying to save me. And begged me to stay there. She cried. She cried because she totally believed that I'm throwing away my soul's salvation. She didn't see what I saw. I came back to Manchester, England, and I told my wife what transpired between me and David Koresh. She never said a word, but my wife began to attend these meetings. It never dawned on me that she would join them. One evening, she broke the news to me that they were going to Waco, Texas, And I said to the joke, you know, I mean that. My wife, Zela, Stephen, Paulina, Philip, and Vanessa. They were going the Monday morning at 6 o'clock, leaving the airport, and they never told me until the 6 o'clock the evening before. Your family is the most precious thing that you have. Oh my God.
This is your wake-up call. Jesus loves you. Thanks for listening to today's Christian Radio, 1010 a.m.
Our mission was to do an article to get something to back up what these Australians were saying. I was able to get court testimony on a custody trial here in the United States in Michigan involving Carrie Jewell, a minor.
I was wearing a long white t-shirt and panties. He kissed me and sat there, but then he laid me down. He took his penis and rubbed it on the outside of my vagina while he was still kissing me. I was still kind of freaked out. When he was finished, he told me to go take a shower.
It's true that he had a lot of wives and he fathered a lot of children, but they were not, he didn't drag them off or rape them or anything like that. I never saw anything like that. He looked on it as like spiritual thing that you'd have in the vessels, because it mentioned in the Bible the vessels of the Lord. So they're carrying the vessels of the Lord.
Some of the ones that escaped talked about going to elaborate measures to get out of that compound, which was guarded, you know, with people with guns, you know, with sentries.
That's not true about the armed guards. But he had guns. We were preparing ourselves, and we believe that this is what God told him from the scriptures, prepare yourself. In America, you can own as many guns as you want, and there's nothing illegal about it, as long as you don't go out threatening people's lives.
I remember calling the FBI, asking them questions. Do y'all know about this? What about the guns? Is this legal? And, you know, a lot of times federal government people will say, I'm sorry, we cannot confirm or deny anything. We didn't get any answers.
It was only through dumb luck that the ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol and Tobacco and Firearms, got involved.
UPS was in the process of delivering the package to the Branch Davidians, and it dropped and broke open. And there were hand grenades in there.
I first learned about this case in May or June of 1992. The Sheriff's Department had incident reports regarding this group called the Branch Davidians. They're amassing weapons. That was a serious problem. My main goal was to get the probable cause to serve a warrant, to get in there, to see if, in fact, they were illegal manufacturing weapons and had possession of unregistered weapons, of which you need to be licensed for. I used a lot of ATF resources to find out who are we going to be up against. We used mail going in and out. We used aerial surveillance. We used undercover agents. I used everything that you can imagine.
The ATF found a gun kit that could convert an AR-15 to fully automatic M16, the battle rifle for the United States military. And they also had 2 Barrett 50 caliber Browning machine guns. Right there. That's 50 caliber. If it hits you in the head, there'll be nothing left from the stump of the neck up.
The big breakthrough was the information I got on the types of weapons Koresh had. I corroborated a lot of that with former Branch Davidians. They were stockpiling weapons. There were neighbors hearing automatic gunfire. So that kind of put the lid on it. If you're illegal in manufacturing weapons and you are in possession of unregistered weapons, then you're violating the federal law. That was enough probable cause to get my warrant. We had surveillance all the time. We were waiting for him to come out, to nab him, to get him away from the compound. He never came out. Wow, well, we're gonna have to rethink this. This guy, David Koresh, was not gonna go without a fight.
I'm destroying people like you. Their towers are desolate. Their streets are laid waste. I thought surely you would receive correction.
We had to prepare ourselves so that when we serve this warrant, we're going to do the best we can to prevent anybody from getting injured, hurt, or killed. We knew what we were up against. I knew that there was going to be an exchange of gunfire.
It was a daytime warrant, so we had to maintain that element of surprise. We had to insert a large amount of agents into a location without the benefit of any type of cover. It wouldn't be unusual to see cattle trailers going down the street, in this case, a road. So that's the approach we took, and we trained additionally for something of this nature.
We worked 9 months on our story, and our article was called The Sinful Messiah. When you break that kind of story, you can assume there's going to be some backlash, one way or the other.
The ATF tried to get the Waco Trail to hold up on the article. They wanted a little more time, and I don't know how much more time, a few days or one or 2 days.
Our editors asked the ATF, well, tell us why we shouldn't run the story. And my understanding was there wasn't a really good reason for that. So our editors made the decision to run with it. We need to do what we think is important for the public to know. The story ran on Saturday, and I think everybody was shell-shocked. Everybody was like, what in the world is going on? You know, it blew their minds.
My brother Mike and I got a call Saturday night from the agents out of Austin, and they said they're going to do the raid in the morning on the compound. Can y'all meet us and assist us? We said, absolutely.
At the staging area, I asked the agent in charge, can I go out there and please allow me to discuss and talk to the agents and tell them how important it is to be very careful out there tomorrow morning. And he goes, nope. He says, you don't have time for that. I said, okay. I wish I'd have been more vocal.
Sunday morning, we went to that command post.
You thought this was going to be a good day?
Absolutely. You can hear the helicopters winding up, getting ready to head to the compound. It's my brother Mike, U.S. Marshal.
That's the most important rig right there, without a doubt. That's the most important rig in the whole town.
There's ATF agents. I knew some of the Davidians, and I could identify them, and that was just going to be our part.
The plan was to try to overwhelm the building. They see the numbers and they'll lay the guns down. However, we'd never run across a religious group before. Nobody tells you that a cult's gonna be more violent than a prison gang or an organized motorcycle gang. You just don't think that. I remember that morning as the medics were coming around, they wanted to put my blood type on my neck. And that's not something that we've ever done before. And I'm thinking, no, I did not want to do that. It just was bad juju to me.
That morning, a postman was stopped by a news unit, and the news unit asked him, "Where is the compound?" Thinking that this postman was a righteous guy. As it turns out, he was a hardcore Davidian, and so he immediately goes to David Koresh.
We were getting up for the day. I remember coming downstairs after breakfast, and I saw David and the mailman. The young man had come back to let David know what was supposed to happen. There's going to be a raid.
David said, okay, they're on their way. Nobody do anything stupid. Let me do all the talking. I told you this would happen.
So Koresh has a call to arms. Everybody get the guns.
David comes in and says, get back to our rooms. I told my children, I said, I don't think we're going to be living here after today. I think something is getting ready to change.
The undercover agent, Robert Rodriguez, that's him, just come out of the compound and is going in to tell them, do not go in, you've lost the element of surprise, right there in that Chevy Blazer.
When we first heard that Robert came out and said, hey, they know that ATF and the National Guard are coming. There were people there, the more senior agents who had done this a lot longer than I had. They stood up and started taking their gear off. I mean, they had the sense of saying, well, this is over.
But ATF hierarchy basically said, we don't care, sent the men into an ambush.
I boarded one of those helicopters. We were given the thumbs up. We took off and flew over the compound. I prayed for us because I knew that this was going to be a serious matter.
My assignment was to clear the doorway on the porch for the first team to open the door.
A little girl came from next door, and she said, here they come.
You've come on our land. We're not bowing down to you or the system. Because in the end of the day, we have to face to God, answer to God, and that's how we looked on it.
I'm hearing something akin to gunfire. I'm running, and as I'm approaching, I'm looking up, the door's ajar, and I see 3 men standing there. I recognize the cult leader, David Koresh, and I don't see any guns. So I jump onto the porch. He backs up and he smiles at me and shuts the door. That same second, a barrage of gunfire fires outward. I dove over to my left, which was the dog pit.
We started to fire back now to defend ourselves because we're not going to lie down and roll over and let them kill us all.
Towards the back of the building, my husband Wayne was yelling out. He was telling them that they were women and children and they need to back off and go away.
911, what's the emergency? 75 men around our building and they're shooting at us in Mount Carmel. Mount Carmel? Yeah. Call it off. We're under fire!
Bullets are flying over me. One hit David in his groin and one hit me in the wrist. He's just like that with his head down, lying flat on the floor.
I realized my little handicapped boy was in front of the window and he was screaming. The shots from outside started coming through and I kept wondering, is this how he's gonna die?
Nobody was ready for this. This total chaos.
There was so much lead flying. It was vicious. They wanted to murder us.
We were up in a helicopter. We were taking fire. That's when it changed. The pilot said that, you know, we have agents down. It only meant one thing. I didn't know who got hit, but I knew agents were being shot at and killed.
Came across the radio, there was a siege in Waco, and I thought, that's where Uncle Winston is.
And I remember being so blasé and saying, oh, don't worry, Uncle will come home.
I had this trickle of water. Thought, where's it coming from? So they got in it was my room, and that's where they found Winston. They found him with a single gunshot wound to his head. God rest his soul.
Thankfully, all our children were still alive, but so many other people had died. And they were shot just because they came to read the Bible.
Pushing people around with guns. I'll meet you at the doorstep any day. You know, and somebody will get hurt. If you want to keep playing that game, I'm talking to you.
The FBI were called in, and the agent said to me, who the fuck are these people?
Exit the compound now and follow the instructions.
Now it was a battle of wills, and it was a battle that lasted 51 days. You might think, it's history, but the aftershocks of Waco are still alive today.
We have what appears to be a fire.
I recognised some of the voices, and I heard them scream out, and I knew that the flames had reached them.
The whole building was engulfed, and I was really concerned because my flesh and blood was in the compound.